Hello, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you. We like to be prompt here. Good evening. This is the Taiao Webinar series, and we are proud to be doing it. And we hope you enjoy our first speaker, who is the marvellous, I'm going to bring you across so we can see you better just for a second, is the marvellous Tim Park. Tim, can you just give us an idea exactly where you're from at the moment, or where you're working? I mean, it's not far from where I live, actually, but tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, kia ora koutou whānau. My name's Tim Park. I'm the manager at Otari Wilton's Bush. We're the, I guess, premier native plant museum botanic garden in Aotearoa. So we have about 5 hectares of native botanic garden and around 100 hectares of regenerating and old growth native forest. I've been there for a couple of years, and before that I was at City Council in a partnerships role in helping establish predator-free Wellington and help community groups get set up, and also organisations like conservation volunteers to get established in Wellington. My background's in restoration ecology, so I've been doing that since I was a kid. And I kind of grew up in a family with ecological bent. So it's been really, it's a part of my life through my whole life. I grew up in Kaiwhara. I went to Onslow College, and still in this. I come back to the western suburbs. About 2 years ago now. Yeah.
Beautiful part of Wellington. I can say that myself because I live in the same area. It's beautiful. I can virtually throw an apple and land on your roof where you're working. Let's now put you across. I won't do that, of course. I'm going to put you across here, and if you go to your shared screen, let's see if that pops up, and then you'll be able to take us through. I think you can do it from your end and see if we get it on the screen. Got it. Away you go.
Okay, so this is the landing page for iNaturalist New Zealand. iNaturalist New Zealand is part of a global project to collect information about any living thing that we observe in that's around us and that we see anywhere we go. It's a free thing that you can do, and it aggregates these observations by basically, anyone can record an observation, usually through an iPhone, or you can use a camera or even a recorder to record sound. You upload that observation through the app to share it with people, and then you can talk about it and agree or disagree or help people with their observations online. So a big part of it is basically democratizing science, so anyone's able to contribute to science through sharing this information. So it's for me, this is where I keep all my nature photography. So if I want to access any of my plant photos, plants are a big part of my work. They're all stored on iNaturalist, and I also make those photographs available to anyone. Recently, we ran a big bio-blitz called the City Nature Challenge, and that's part of a global effort to record nature where we live around the world. I'll talk more about that later. But this is a map of the most latest observations that are coming in live. So when I just loaded the page recently, someone has recorded a harvestman from this one, that red one there up in Auckland, and anyone is able to see that observation. I'm just clicking into it now, and you can see this person, Sorceress, is their username, and I've recorded this lovely little harvestman near Auckland, and it's only just been added to the iNaturalist, so no one has come in and agreed with that observation or assisted with that. So I'll just go back out to the start before I get too complicated, but I just wanted to show you a bit how that works. So the hardest thing about iNaturalist is actually remembering your password. So I've got mine saved, which is lucky. So basically, if I go back to the home, this is the observation. These are my updates. You can see if I go to my observations, I've been doing this for a few years, so I've racked up over 8,000 observations. Yeah.
Wow.
And some people might do this in a month or a year if they're dedicated. But yeah, I'm not a super duper user, but I am quite familiar with how it works. So my most recent observation was myrtle rust, which is one of the things that we're encouraging people to record, so that we can understand, how that threat is spreading throughout New Zealand. But I'll click on that observation, which I saw at Ōtari where I work just last week. And you can see on the plant there's little bits of, I'll zoom into the photo. You can see there's little bits of rusty stuff there. That's actually myrtle rust. So I've observed that that plant pathogen on another plant, on the host plant. And so when I observed it, I took a photograph on my phone, and I uploaded this observation through an app on my phone, and then added that, then synced that into the net just by saying, submit. It's a really easy thing to collect on your phone, so you can just take photographs and then upload them to the app later. It records where you are, and also when you made that observation and then uploaded it later. You can see here that there's actually been two people agree with my ID. So that's a bit like going to the doctor and being diagnosed with a certain condition and then getting a second opinion from another doctor. So I've got two doctors effectively agreeing that I've got this this rust. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
And so the amazing thing about iNaturalist is that you have a whole lot of experts volunteering their time to improve the information that's coming in. And so all the time, all the information is getting better and better by people recording the information and adding to it. Yeah. So automatically that observation has gone into the Ōtari Nature project, and also the myrtle rust project, which I added it to. So projects are another thing you can do to improve the amount of data, that type of data that you get in. So I added in that project, I added a bit of information about what it was affecting, the rata vine. Yeah. So that's within a project. But there can be some really simple projects like this one I did for Ōtari Nature. I'll just open that project up. So projects just aggregate a whole lot of observations in a certain number of ways. And basically, this project for Ōtari is basically aggregating all the observations that have been seen in Ōtari of all species. So on iNaturalist, there's been 9,000 observations of around 1,400 different species, and that's by about 500 different people. So that information is just aggregated over time, and these are some of the more recent ones. You can see there's lots of fungi coming in this time of year, and there's also a bit of a leaderboard, so people can see who's recording and who's got the most diversity of species as well. And then what's the most commonly observed thing? Kiddo, isn't that amazing? And then, so then they can see a map of where everything has been seen. So that's a bit of a run through of, I guess, the basics of iNaturalist. There's also I might talk a little bit about the City Nature Challenge, which was on recently. So I'll just go into projects up here, and I'll search for the nature. Here it is. This one, City Nature Challenge Aotearoa. So this was City Nature Challenge was basically a BioBlitz. So that's a big effort of lots of different people to aggregate or make observations in different cities throughout New Zealand. So this year there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cities, and then the rest of New Zealand as well. So in Wellington we won, hooray! And that was we finally beat Christchurch after a number of years of trying. But basically there were we got in Wellington there were almost 13,000 observations made over a long weekend, and we got almost 2,000 species, and we had more than 250 people contributing. So, and they're all doing it independently, and projects that contributed to that and events. So, for example, some groups like Manawa Karioi, they ran like guided walks, and then they demonstrated how iNaturalist works and encourage people to using big community effort. And I'm not sure if some people have were here the other night to hear about Nigel and the Old Man Beard Free Wellington project. So they've used a huge amount of data. So I might just look up the Old Man's Beard project. This project is basically a fantastic way of showing how powerful iNaturalist can be for community groups. So Old Man Beard Free Wellington basically is taking all observations that have ever been made of Old Man's Beard in Wellington, and then bring them all together, and then actually planning their targeted weed control effort to rid individual reserves and areas of Old Man's Beard. I think I made an observation about 10 years ago in Aro Valley, and I think about a month ago they went in and controlled that Old Man's Beard.
Oh, wow.
So that information was still valid 10 years ago. You see, so this is the power of the data, is that it just brings together a whole lot of information into one place, so that they can, so you can see there's me, and you can see what observations I've done and so on. The big thing with iNaturalist is you can't break it. So give it a go, download the app, and I think it's really an amazing resource that's free to everyone, and it can really help if you want to keep track of what species are growing in your area, and also for you to help you learn. So if you want to understand what something is in your backyard or what you see on a bushwalk, just take a photo and upload it to iNaturalist, and someone will help you identify it. Give it a go. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Lovely to have you involved. I'll send you back to the green room. It's very lovely to see you again.
See ya.
Wonderful. And we bring in the magnificent Peter Reimann. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Lovely to have you as part of this. I'm going to put your presentation onto the screen, and it's all yours.
Okay. So the ongoing saga. I've visited other parks and reserves, and I think if only we could have so few problems. Trelissick Park is it's in the valley between Crofton Downs and Nio and Wagetown. So it's predominantly in the valley, and the best way to see the beautiful bush in the valleys is by taking a train trip on the Johnsonville line. And you have to really, when you look out down into the valley and see the park, you've just got to ignore all the weeds splashing by on the railway corridor. And the only problem is that nobody else seems to be admiring the park. They're all glued to their smartphones. So anyway, it's about 24 hectares, including some leased land from the railways. And it's part of the ecological corridor between the harbour and the outer greenbelt for birds and native fish and insects moving up and down between the harbour and the outer greenbelt. We've had a lot of interferences. This is the problems I was talking about at the beginning. In the 19th century, there was a lot of logging going on, taking all the beautiful timber from rimu trees in Totara and Matai, etc., and farming at one end and the other. Then they built the railway line on one side and road building on the other. And the problem with those is that there's always upgrades going on. And every time there's an upgrade, there's stuff that gets spilt down into the park and lots of weeds coming in. And then we got a sewer system through the middle, and they're doing upgrades there, and occasional leakages of pretty disastrous sometimes, of sewer going straight into the streams. Then we've got garden escapes because we're in the middle of the urban jungle, and seeds from exotics carried by birds. And because it's down in the valleys, action of gravity means rubbish descends from above, and also windy Wellington blows in from the urban surroundings. And one of our major problems is stormwater from the huge 20-kilometre squared catchment. A lot of people don't appreciate that stormwater from all the roads and roofs and gardens and everywhere ends up in the streams and causes a lot of damage, scouring of stream banks, and pollution occurs because of people washing their cars, etc. Sedimentation, and the big problem for us is runoff from hard surfaces such as roofs and roads. And so when it rains, the build-up of the streams is amazing. Quick build-up, up to 2 metres high, with it's a real sight to behold. So just demonstrate some of the what happens in those heavy rainstorms fairly quickly. This was in 2021, July. There was quite a lot of rain, as you see, and it carried away one of the bridges on the Coromoko stream, and it ended up washed onto bridge number 5. That's the bottom photo in the middle. And then you've got the debris trap on the left, which the debris trap was built to stop debris going into the tunnels down below the park, because in 1976 there was lots of flooding in the industrial area. So that has to be cleared periodically. And so under that is the iron upright rails of the debris trap buried under all that water. And then this is Bridge 6 on the Northern Walkway, which was similarly beset in that rainstorm. So the other problem I talked about was rubbish. And after a lot of advocacy over about 15 years, I think, we've been trying to get a track down from Oban Street. Finally, we managed to get it agreed with all the residents up there and the council and so on. And then having access, we discovered that there was all this rubbish below the houses, and we just had truckloads of rubbish. So that's the rubbish problem. So getting involved in restoration, our group began in 1991, and we're made up of community associations, as you can see there. And it's in conjunction with the park owner, City Council, and so they do, they built tracks through the park and bridges and signage and do all the heavy jobs. And then in the recent past, we also had the regional council on board with their Take Care Fund. The regional council are not involved now. We're not a, what do they call it? Can't remember now. Anyway, the Honda Tree Fund, we also got some funding, also from the Ministry of the Environment and DOC. And so we do a lot of weed control. We seem to be forever weeding and planting. We put in about 95,000 plants so far from 1991, and lots of animal pest control and rubbish removal. So bi-monthly working bees adopt a spot by various people, roaming volunteers, corporate groups, conservation volunteers and school groups, scouts, guides, cubs, contractors. So we get a lot of help. And animal pest control, we've got some A24 self-resetting traps, and we had some vector traps from Scots College at one stage. They're still there. The regional council monitoring bait stations for possums. We had problems with bait stations filled with pellets because the pellets used to spill out, and because it's free range for dogs, we had some dog poisoning with the pellets. So we changed it over to block bait, and that's been very successful. And of course, we have the DOC 200 traps as well. But of course, we also got hedgehogs and rabbits and cats. For the rabbits, we put protectors around some of the plants. We've discovered that rabbits have a appetite for hebes, coprosmas and cophi, but not much else. And because it's off-leash for dogs and they love the water, the dogs build channels down the stream bank, which so that's a bit of a problem for us as well. But never mind, the dogs enjoy themselves. So we're always harping on about stormwater runoff because of all the damage that you saw in those previous slides. What sort of worries us is infill housing, which sort of sneakily appear all over the catchment. And the worry is that more hard surfaces and maybe in 20 years' time, it'll be all houses in the catchment and no bush. So it's a bit of a glum thought, really. I hope it doesn't happen. Anyway, we've got a website which has got heaps of information on it. You can spend days looking through all that stuff. Facebook page, which Bill Hester keeps up to date very assiduously, and displays such as the Wadestown Fair, and the newsletter, which comes out once every 3 months, brochures at park entrances and talks like this one. So just before and after photo, this is Bridge 2 across the Coromako stream. Nio School came to visit in 2006, and this is looking from the other side at the end of the bridge, looking into the bush in 2010, and now, of course, the bush is much higher than that, twice as high now, probably. So then the last slide is, I was talking about this track down from Oban Street, which we had a lot of trouble getting. And then finally we of course, we had to put a bridge across the stream. And so we actually got funding from community donations and Francis Lee and from Transpower. It cost about 100,000, over 100,000, I think, altogether. And the council, we worked in conjunction with the city council on the consenting side for that. And so that's at the opening of the bridge. Yeah, so that's me basically.
Fantastic, Peter. You do an amazing job. Is there always a place for more volunteers?
Oh, yes. We particularly young volunteers.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got sort of our regulars. We're all sort of retired people, but we could do with more muscle, really.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it's lovely. The work you do is tremendous. It's a great park, and thanks for sharing your project with us. Thanks for being part of the webinar.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So we can put Peter now into the green room, and we can welcome Jane Martin. Hi, Jane. How you going?
Good, thank you.
I've got your title slide up, which is Backyard Bush. Take it away. That's wonderful.
That's me, yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present this project. Especially, I'm honored, and the group is honored to be included as a success story, because we're not even really at the end of our what we conceived of as our project. So we're getting close, though. So I'll address that a little bit later in what I'm presenting. But there's so much I could share about this project, and I'm really excited to. But tonight, I just want to focus on the success aspect, because I think there are some interesting lessons that could be transferable. So just to orient you to the project a little bit, it is between the border of Oro Valley and Kelburn, in a little valley. What you can see there on the right is, in that bright green, that's our project area. That's actually where the work was done. We benefit by being around some other established and projects that are being worked on. So the Norway Street Walkway, shout out to Dennis Asher for his beautiful work over the decades on that area. And then the other little dots I've put onto that sort of terrain view on the right show other sort of remnant bush and reserve projects that are on there. So the co-papa of our project is that we are neighbors reestablishing regenerative native bush in our backyards as a collective effort. And we did a project that was privately funded and professionally implemented. So unlike most of the projects in this series, we're a one-off project. We were not a pre-existing group, and we're not an ongoing program. So there was no volunteering apart from the coordination that's the role that I served, was to sort of initiate and coordinate the project. So where do I press to go to the next slide? There we go. Very good. Okay, so this is the project, sort of the origin of the project from my part, was looking at this existing condition of mature remnant native plants that clearly have been here for some time, and how they were being suppressed quite actively by some of the 40 plus introduced invasive plant species. The ones that I show here that were particularly concerning to me were these mamaku that were being overtaken by ivy in the example on the left, and by convolvulus bindweed on that image on the right. And I just want you to take a look at that mamaku on the image on the right, because we're going to revisit that view a couple of times throughout the course of what I'll show you, the course of the project. But we did have an audit done, and there were more than 40 species of introduced exotic plants. So that existing condition was in one of the residential areas down closer to Norway Street. This shows views of the steep, inaccessible areas that sort of characterize the project. And it's in part why it was really compelling to have someone professional do this work, as opposed to trying to do it ourselves. It also is a contiguous area. There are no fences, and that, again, sort of spoke to how we could sort of approach this particular. I think if there had been fences, it would have been a different project, but not to say that it couldn't have been done, but it really helped in this case that there weren't fences. We were a group of residents, both owner-occupied and landlord rentals, and shops on Upland in Kelburn Village, and the Wellington City Council. This walkway that you see pictured here, that's the sort of Plunkett Norway stairs / ramp / walkway. And then the picture that is in the middle there at the top left is looking up toward the back of the Plunkett residences. So again, you can just get a sense of how steep this is, and truly inaccessible to those properties, even though it's their backyard. So I mentioned the council, it's the sewer reserve and the public walkway, and in the end, it was a road reserve along Plunkett. So I found that individual weeding in my garden was just utterly unsuccessful. No matter how meticulously I tended my patch and took out every single little slip of Tradescantia I could find, it just kept coming, like overnight down the hill, like literally. I could feel it sort of impending, and it really fed a sense of futility. And the more I met neighbors and talked to neighbors, found that was very well shared. And so again, I could say so much more about what these pictures represent, but we'll just leave it there for now. So pretty quickly, once we started talking about doing a project, we recognized that we definitely benefited by the good work of others who have worked in the immediate area and then also farther out. So I just wanted to show our proximity to Zealandia, and we do benefit by being within that sort of halo of Zealandia, and we wanted to support that and other conservation and restoration sites around the area, and at least reduce the amount that we were contributing to the problem. So I'll just kind of breeze through these pictures, but just to give you a sense of what it looked like on the ground, this was during the weed control. Kaitiaki Onahere is the company that we contracted to do the work, and you can see them in their kit here working on those slopes. And what it looks like, and again, that mamaku on the far right is that one from the original photograph that I shared. So you can see how it really stands out now that the willow and the avocado and the camellias and the ginger and everything was taken out from around it. And then a view of that same mamaku after the planting. And this was just literally days ago that I took this photograph on the right. We had over 1,000 plants put into the work area, 1,000 plants done by Kaitiaki Onahere. And you can see that over the last 6 months of what was a challenging summer rain for a lot of people in this country was fantastic conditions for the growth of these plants. So we and they really benefited by that. They've grown up. You don't see them, the green on the green, as starkly, but you can appreciate that they started out at about 30 centimeters, and they're more than double that in most cases for those. And we've got grasses and harakeke close to, and toitoi close to some of the houses where we don't want to do so much shading, and then farther out it will be, sort of the 3 and 4 meter on up high bush in the end. So again, what I mentioned about this idea of success, there were 3 things that were going to determine the success of this project. One was enough interest from owners. When I started this project, I literally had met maybe 2 of my neighbors and had no idea of the disposition for this or appetite for this sort of project. It needed to be a contiguous area, enough of one to be effective. We couldn't just be a couple neighbors, here and there. We had to, really be enough of a block, enough financial contribution to hire the professionals, and professionals who are willing, available, and competent to do this. And luckily, we did find all those 3 things so we could move forward. What contributed to the success of this, and this is, again, my view, other people will have other things to say about it, but first off was just don't assume that people won't participate. I think that was something, that it was very easy to sort of be skeptical about with, you might refer to as absentee landlords would be interested in authorizing and contributing financially to make this happen. But I'm really glad that I asked and that they were so receptive. Consulting a few neighbors before for input before taking it to the group was really instrumental. That helped me know how to tweak it and sort of what the appetite would be and to appeal to that. And then critically, to separate the authorization for the work to happen, to separate that from the financial contribution, the expectation of everyone to contribute. And especially because the tight timeline, and I mentioned this a couple points down, the tight timeline of doing this all at once for it to be effective. We couldn't like start on one side and finish the other side 5 years later for it really to happen. So recognizing that not everybody would be able to, even if they wanted to, budget for this, they had, wouldn't have the opportunity to that. So really separating that out was key. And that everyone would pay the same amount. Going back to that kaupapa, we really are seeing ourselves as neighbors and equal neighbors, not separated into owner-occupiers or renters or even council. We considered a neighbor. And then just to round this out, making it really easy to join. We had no social media. We didn't have meetings. We just was a yes or no. Here's the proposal. Are you willing to join us to do this? And I did provide an FAQ, invited questions, and we distributed responses. And then we're able to move forward from there. So critically, a question came up, was it conservation? And we collectively decided, no, it's not conservation, and there's no restriction on future development. Someone could go down to Bunnings and get nasturtium and plant it tomorrow, or ivy and plant it tomorrow. I mean, that's the reality of working in this sort of environment. But we don't expect that. And then critically to hire an experienced company for whom this is a small project. I can't say enough about how professional Kaitiaki Unaheri has been and accommodating for working with us as a group, even though it was really outside of their typical client type. So do I have just a minute to run through these?
Yep, go for it. Yep.
Okay, so indicators of success. So to my mind, it's a little early to call this success. And again, I'm very humbled to be invited to present this as a success. I do believe that it is, but I wasn't quite there yet because we're not finished. But clearly, we have done our bit to restore the mana of the remnant native plants, and that really does come through, especially when you're here on site. And to that point, the reemergence of other native species who have volunteered themselves, when given the conditions, they're able to grow. And I list a few of the ones that we've seen coming up very robustly just in the last 6 months, as well as increased activity by birds and other critters. And these are photographs that I've taken of some of the ones that I've observed there on the right. And visible native plant growth, as I mentioned, clearly the target species have been decimated, which was the goal. We weren't looking for weed-free, we're not looking for elimination, but enough to let the native plants regenerate. And then it was a success that 21 properties participated, and all 7 shops on Upland participated. The double O there is owner-occupied. So 4 owner-occupied, 10 of the properties that are rentals, and so that's like a 2 or more flats situation. And then a couple of properties that are council. We were on time and on budget. That feels like a great success these days. Approximately 3,500 square meters of weeds controlled, over 2,000 plants installed. I mentioned the 1,000 that the company installed. There's also about 500 that we've put in as individuals, and then council has another 500 going in by the end of the year. It's eliminated ongoing maintenance and the noise and pollution that goes along with that, chemical pollution and gas-powered motors, petrol motors. The hillsides are increasingly better stabilized, which is certainly not lost on us these days. And also a wonderful benefit of the project is continued neighborliness, and that it's a real vote of confidence that other neighbors have asked to join since they've seen it, what we've been able to accomplish. So that's me. I do just want to again thank the group of neighbors who I'm representing tonight, including City Council, in their helpful work in maintaining their parts, and of course Kaitiaki o Nahere. So my email is there, and again, so much more to share. Really appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Jane. That was marvellous, and you keep up the great work. Lovely to have you a part of this, and we'll send you off to the green room, and we invite Olivia to join us. Hello, Olivia Bird. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well, thanks. Been a good lot of presentations so far.
Yeah, well, it's great. Everybody's doing their thing really well and just getting through whatever we throw at them. Your one is community-driven restoration, and you've got a bit to tell us, haven't you? So you go for it.
I do indeed. So just for a bit of context, like Nick said, my name is Olivia and I'm currently a master's student at Victoria University of Wellington, studying ecological restoration. So very fitting, a lot of presentations for me tonight.
Perfect.
Exactly. So this was part of a project that I did last year. So I'm going to be presenting my research on a survey that I did on different community-driven restoration groups, and kind of running you through some of their characteristics as well as the support, challenges, and future opportunities I found that they were facing. I'm also aware that there might be some participants in the audience that actually participated in this survey. So if there's anyone in that boat, thank you very much. I really appreciated it. So as we're all aware, anthropogenic disturbance is really contributing to widespread habitat loss, fragmentation, and the loss of many different ecosystem services and Indigenous biodiversity. So our community environmental groups play an absolutely critical role in remediating these. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of groups contributing to this mission all across New Zealand. In Wellington specifically, Wellington City Council has a network of approximately 140 different community environmental groups. And these groups, as you've been hearing about so far, contribute to a wide range of restoration activities, including weed and pest control, trail building, monitoring, cleanups, as well as nursery propagation and planting. However, as you can see here, the benefits that these groups provide isn't just environmental, and there are a lot of different social and cultural benefits as well. And to help these groups thrive, it's really important to understand their characteristics and how these may relate to the support, challenges, and future opportunities that they may face. So to do this, I designed a survey with the help of Wellington City Council, which agreed 4 key areas. The first being the community environmental group characteristics. So I was looking at the number of members, their contribution rates, age demographics, the types of activities that they undertook, the goals they had, and how they formed and monitored those goals. I then had a section on the types of support that groups received and who from, and the support they would like to receive in the future, and as well as an area on the challenges they faced, and how significant they found those challenges, and asking what the different financial costs that those groups had were. Finally, I had a section on the future of the work, and also the opportunities that people anticipated for collaboration and community connection. So this was sent out to Wellington City Council's database of 140 groups, and we managed to get a response rate of just over 20%, which I was very happy with. So my first step when I got the results back was to go through and try and identify trends. So the standout one for characteristics was age. As Peter just mentioned before, the biggest age group was definitely the 51 to 65-year-old group, with over 65s being the next largest. I kind of expected that from my review of the literature. And while you can see that younger demographics are starting to get more well represented when you look at the second largest age demographic that groups are made up of, most of these only made up like 20 to 40% of the total group compositions. Next, I looked at engagement within the groups. So I found that most of the groups under 50 members had less than 10 members engaged in over 30% of their activities, which was, really interesting to see. So I'll just give you a little bit of time to look at that. You can see here that it's definitely a smaller portion of people, which might suggest that there's that core group of volunteers with other people kind of cycling in and out. And this led me to assess the division of tasks, which I think, never mind, sorry, that was in a different version of the slideshow I sent through, so I'll skip over that. So yeah, I also looked at support systems. Wellington City Council was clearly a large source of support for groups, particularly for those technical tasks. Though, as you can see, the groups also really consistently relied upon internal support for a wide range of activities, leaning on internal executive groups, administrative leads, and those who had IT expertise. They also cited a range of other sources as being useful, including other groups or members within the community, Forest and Bird, and also the local residents association. I found that Greater Wellington Regional Council was anecdotally mentioned as being useful for funding, and Wellington City Council was more useful for providing more direct advice, resources, and information. Next, the challenges. So you can see from the slide here that the groups, the challenges groups facing are really highly diverse. The primary issue that emerged was bureaucracy, which kind of covered everything from access and inclusion in planning processes, formal and informal communications between the groups and Wellington City Council, and tight application deadlines for funding. I found that the resource-related constraints, including insufficient funding, workspace areas, and equipment access, also lined up with the biggest costs that groups said they experienced. Issues with volunteers included insufficient numbers of volunteers, but also ones around reliability, skill level, and physical ability, particularly for those groups that had identified the majority of their volunteers as being in the older age demographic. Another note for the future, there may also be an increase in weather-related challenges with climate change, as a number of groups said that they were experiencing climate change-related extreme weather events, preventing them from doing their work to their normal schedule. Yet, despite the challenges, groups were optimistic and really excited about future opportunities, which was cool to see. A lot of people were excited to just continue business as usual, but expand their skill sets for trapping, weed management, and broader strategy. Some people also wanted to expand their current projects or unite them with fellow restoration initiatives through the use of ecological corridors, which I thought was a great idea. And many groups wanted to create opportunities to showcase their work to other environmental groups and members of the community while learning from them and sharing specialist knowledge. So overall, community environmental groups were really appreciative of the support they received and wanted it to continue. The needs that emerged are complex and can be quite difficult to address, such as access to resources and more funding. But groups were already thinking about this, so there were suggestions on finding ways to share resources in the future, as noted by a neat idea to set up like a trail camera library that trapping groups could use, for example. And the future of community environmental group membership kind of remains to be seen, as many groups were composed of an older age demographic and a lot of groups didn't have a succession plan. It's going to be interesting to see whether the people in the 36 to 50-year-old age bracket naturally move into those primary core group member roles, or whether, as Peter was saying, the younger generations are going to rise up to fill that gap instead. And so last but not least, I have to say a big thank you to the team at Wellington City Council for all their help in making the survey possible, and also to my university supervisor, Stephen Hartley, and all of you guys for listening. Thank you so much.
Oh, brilliant, Olivia. Thank you. Just fantastic. Did so well. Was it a thoroughly enjoyable experience?
Oh, it was great. And it was really cool getting to talk to such a wide group of people. I had different people like giving me emails or phone calls, so I got to learn a lot.
Yeah, there's a huge, a great number of very knowledgeable people out there running these projects, aren't there?
Absolutely. Oh, and I was also meaning to say, I have a copy of the final report available if anyone's interested. I might just pop my email address in the chat, and if anyone would like a copy, they can just email me.
Thank you, Olivia. Lovely to have you part of this webinar, and good luck with your next survey.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. Thank you. and we bring in Shelby. Shelby, it's lovely to have you. Sorry, you're the latest one, the last one, but I'm really looking forward to your presentation. I'll switch across to yours and introduce yourself and take us through it. Thank you.
Thanks. Kia ora koutou, ko Shelby, toku ingoa. I'm one of the co-leaders of Ngā Kaimanaki o Te Waimapihi, or formerly known as Pole Hill Protectors. We help restore the mahi in Waimapihi Reserve, which is a reserve just below Zealandia, bordered by Brooklyn, Aro Valley, Highbury. So all pretty close to where everyone else has been talking about as well. So
yeah,
to hear everyone's stories. So yeah, a bit about ourselves. We help out with trapping, planting, bird monitoring, and raising social awareness, and especially trying to change social norms. And one of the things that we've been trying to do throughout our time with helping out in the reserve is trying to implement changes in pet owners. And the first step with this was trying to get dogs on leads. I wasn't really around when this was happening, but pictured here is Lisa and Jeff Whittle. They're two of the co-founders of Ngā Kaimanaki o Te Waimapihi, and they live nearby, and that's their dog Phoebe on a lead. When they moved here about 30 years ago, they said that there was nobody had their dog on lead. It was just, when you walk through our valley, it was just, there'd be dog poop everywhere, and not a lot of native birds either. So they started a campaign, Take a Lead, Save a Saddleback, or Tieke. And now we have 90% of dog owners with their dogs on leads throughout Waimapihi, which is incredible. And we've got a mixture of signs and different social campaigns that have helped bring that to the light. And, there's been times where I've been through there and seen someone with their dog off a lead, and I'll say, hey, kindly, oh, you will be fine if you have your dog on a lead. And they say, yeah, we know, we've already been told by 3 other people in the reserve that they've passed. So it's pretty crack up to see those social changes and how keen people are to support that. And since then, we've been shifting our focus a lot to cats. So, we've got dogs on leads, we've got rats and traps, we've got heaps of volunteers and people supporting us. And cats are one of the really tricky things that not a lot of conservation groups try to tackle. So, on the start of our journey, we thought, let's put out some online surveys to people around the neighborhood and get a feel for how many cat owners there are nearby, and what their views are on keeping their cat indoors, or if they do it all, or if their cat's just kind of roaming around, and what their thoughts were on it. And once we got some feedback from that, we started to hold focus groups actually in the Aro Community Hall, and that was a couple years ago now. And that was really beneficial for us to understand cat owners' concerns and how much responsibility they were willing to take, and basically their views, and trying to target it to more to include it being about their own animal safety rather than saving birds or insects, because a lot of people aren't really, they don't want to see their cat as a predator, really. So we switched our story around to more be about the safety of their animals, and trying to learn from those conversations and figure out what we could do moving forward. We started a few social media campaigns, and obviously targeting that on our Facebook group was quite difficult because of the kind of back and forth between really emotionally invested trappers and pet owners. And we also caught up with the community members throughout this journey, just to make sure that they were all right, and to see if they had made any improvements with their cats. We also introduced some more signs around the reserve to try and reinforce this a bit more. And these actually were funded by the city council, which is awesome. They're incredible partners in a lot of our mahi. And yeah, just to, try and take responsibility for the manu and insects and everything that is starting to come back to this reserve. The next thing we did, which I might need your help for this, Nick, was we created a video about this guy here. He's our successful indoor cat, Fred. So I might just play the video really quick.
It's great having an indoor cat. He's safe, he's not hurting things, and he's not hurting himself. Kia ora, I'm Emily, and this is my cat, Fred. We live in Wellington. I've had him for 6 years, and he's 11 years old. Transitioning him was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I put it off for a really long time because I thought it would be impossible. Fred was an outdoor cat for 10 years, but that meant there was always some sort of trouble he was getting into, and that meant I had to take him to the vet every couple of months. I became more and more aware of the things that he could be hurting. Skinks and geckos and weta and all the native birds we have around Wellington. So I thought it was too big of a risk. I transitioned Fred gradually. At first I only kept him inside at night. Then I just made sure I was really attentive with him. So I played with him every single day. I made sure he had comfortable spots to sit around the house. And I just made sure he had plenty of my time and attention. I definitely sleep easier now, because instead of getting his enrichment from going outside and wandering, he's getting all of it right here at home.
Oops. So yeah, that's our story about Fred, and he's successfully been indoors now for over 2 years. And that video got over 1,000 views on YouTube, and hopefully it inspired a lot of people to try and make that journey and let them know that, it is possible, and we do have a really happy cat at home. And I guess a lot of the mahi that we've been doing with cats is a lot of pivoting and just trying to be, okay, this avenue didn't work so well. Let's try this one. Let's try this one. Let's try and tackle it from all angles. This photo here is one of the photo of one of the flyers that that we all passed out around neighborhoods near Waimapihi, just to kind of continue reinforcing that and to let people know that they do have options, and it's not us against them. I love cats, and I also love birds. And one of the most recent projects that we've been doing is monitoring totowai throughout Waimapihi. You can track our progress on this on the website link below, called My Neighbor Totowai. So we've asked volunteers and students as well to help us monitor totowai, because we, we see them around breeding season and in the summer and springtime, but around this time of year they start to disappear in the reserve. And we're trying to just collect a bit more data around that and why they're disappearing, and just use that information to tackle the rest of our journey, really, to inform council and maybe work through that avenue. And also we're sharing our journey online, and it's actually brought quite a few different people into the reserve, that are actually becoming really connected and attached to these mono. Specifically, they all have different names on the website and where you can find them, and you can identify them from their different tiny little bands on their legs. Yeah, so that's where we've gotten to now. I know it's a lot of different things, but they're all definitely avenues that a lot of different community groups can take, and we'll just try to keep you all updated on our journey. And if you want to know more information, you can go to this website. We also have Facebook and Instagram, Nakaimanaki Ote Waimapihi. Let's go to the next slide. And that's it for me. Sorry, I was trying to be quick and speedy because I know we've gone a bit over time, but thank you all so much for your time and for listening to me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shelby. Brilliant job. And can I ask you just one thing? What do you say to people around your similar age, like Peter Reimann was talking about earlier, about bringing on the young ones? What do you say to people to get them interested in getting involved in all of these projects we've seen tonight? How would you put that?
Well, I think that, yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we actually have a lot of younger volunteers show up to a lot of our weeding events and planting events. And I'm not sure really. I can't really give too much advice. I'm 30, so I'm a bit over that age gap. But yeah, I think just trying to connect with as many community members as possible and letting them know that it is accessible to them and they don't need to be retired to get involved. You know, they can come around very infrequently and help out as much as they can, whether that be keeping their cat inside or coming and planting some trees or getting some rats out of traps. It's just trying to enforce that community. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Shelby. Lovely to meet you. Thanks so much. Nice to meet Fred the cat. And I'll send you back to the green room. And look after yourself. See you out there.
Okay.
Bye-bye. And we bring in Henk. Henk Lowe. Henk, what a fabulous bunch of projects, but the people that we met running them and involved in them, that's the essence, isn't it?
Oh, I've got a smile on my face. It's great to hear all the success stories, and even though some of the groups feel they probably haven't reached their full success yet, some of the things that and the processes and the things that they've been doing on the ground, those are success stories in itself. Because how do you get people just saying, yeah, you know what, I want weeds cleared in my backyard, and everybody works together. So just really encouraging. I think that we can all learn something from all the presentations that we had tonight. And look, Fred is just a fantastic ambassador as well. So thank you very much to everybody presenting tonight. It was fantastic listening to you all.
Go off and have a nice old cup of tea, and we will catch you tomorrow for our last webinar of this series. So on behalf of Henk and Bryony, I'm Nick Tansley. We'll see you again next time. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Ka kite ano.